Throughout today, we've been talking about creativity. We've been talking about the sort of challenges and failure and success. So at some point, you're going to have to pitch your game to people. And normally, you're going to be pitching them to give you large amounts of money to be able to fulfill your dreams. In this case, these guys here are going to pitch for your votes. You are going to provide us with a feedback loop, if you like, for understanding how they help us understand pitching. They're not actually going to pitch their own ideas. No, but maybe. That's a wider subject. What we're going to do is we're going to get them to pitch to us the pitches they've experienced. And that might be the funniest pitch. It'll be the worst pitch. And the best pitch, because we want some good examples out of this too, hopefully. So what we're going to do is a slight change to the original format. We're going to actually give each of the speakers a chance to stand up and have about 10 minutes to talk through their 3 pitches. The funniest, the worst, and the best. And when that's done, we're going to take votes on who we think had the best overall. So because Mike, unfortunately, has to jump on a plane very soon, I'm going to let Mike go first. Mike, do you want to kick off?
I would love to kick off. Thank you very much, Oscar. And I'd like to start off the afternoon on a good note with what is absolutely one of the best pitches I've ever gotten. It was at a conference much like this in Amsterdam, and a gentleman came up and started pitching his, it was a tower defense, I love tower defense games. It was a tower defense game to me. And the pitch started off with, "Here, start playing." And he handed me the tablet. Oh my gosh, I could just start playing. There was no, he held on to it. There was no, he showed me how to play the game. There was just, "Here, start playing." And the game really was that good. I could just start playing and immediately be productive and start having fun. And then he explained some really amazingly relevant things to me. He said, "I've got one level finished, but it's completely finished. It's got the sound, it's got the art, it's got the mechanic, it's got, there was a movable hero that you could zoom around, so it's got the joystick mechanic done, and it's complete. I know about this bug, and this bug, so if I ran into them, I'd know he knew about them." He said, "This is how much time it's going to get me to get the rest of these levels done. Here's how much money I'm looking for to do the following things." It's like, that's everything I've wanted in a pitch right there. All while I was just sitting there playing the game. It was succinct, it was to the point, it was easy, it was beautiful the way haiku is beautiful.
But was the game any good?
It was a zombie-based tower defense game, and it's going to kill me, I forget the name of it. But it was really, it was a great pitch, which kind of goes along with the worst pitch, actually. One of the roles that I play at Amazon is I get to read a lot of the requests for features that games get when they send the mail to Amazon. I actually get to read some of those, and these are almost all the entire population of worst pitches ever. Quite a lot of them start out with, "Well, I deserve a feature because..." Okay, well, actually, we'd really prefer that you earned one, as opposed that, "Boy, we've worked harder than anybody else, we deserve it more." This one absolutely has to take the cake. It was a fellow who had a match 3 game. I'm going to pick on match 3 games a lot, so this is not unique. And his reasons for featuring were the following: "This is a fun game. People who don't think it's fun are stupid. Hopefully, Amazon customers are smarter than Google Play customers. If you, if you're not stupid, you'll feature my game." Well, okay, I'm really hoping that English was a second language, because that did not go over well with the feature team.
How to win friends and influence people.
Yeah, well, choosing not to actually send back the direct quotes from the feature team on that one, they actually nominated me to author and send feedback for why your game is not being featured. And this actually leads me into kind of the funniest part of the reviews, because I can't tell you how many match 3 games I play every year. And every year, every other match 3 pitch is the same. I mean, so actually what I've started doing, Oscar, is I've started gathering data on all of the different match 3 pitches that I've gotten. And
all the different ones, you're saying?
Well, all the pitches are slightly different. The games, you may not be able to tell the difference, but I mean, there's a public service here, right? So I've gathered this data from all the match 3 games, and I've used that data to put together a build your own match 3 pitch. And it goes something like this. Start your pitch with, Dear Amazon, please promote our best match 3 game ever. Look, you can match 3 items in a row and create a set. The set disappears. Now, this is a list, and you have to pick at least 3 out of the following 5. You can match in any direction. You can match multiple gems to create more powerful gems. Matches help you play a metagame, and the color is blue. Okay, so my response to you is going to be, pray tell, what makes your match 3 game different than all of the other match 3 games? If you're a pitcher, please select at least 2 from the following list. Mine is fun to play. I actually hear that one a lot. My gems are blue. I'm not kidding. This is an actual example. So the pitch was, I mean, most of the gems like multiple different colors or multiple different shapes. This guy's field was entirely a shade of ice blue, and the gems were midnight blue, dark blue, baby blue, and periwinkle blue. And, you know, other than some Smurf vomiting all over your screen...
You don't see that very often, though, do you?
Yeah, well, you know, that was the most original color arrangement I've actually seen in a long time. Yeah, my gems are blue is certainly one of your choices. Oh yes. My matches add fill in the blank to the metagame fill in the blank. Because so many match 3 games now are multi-dimensional match 3 games. You make the matches in the bottom, and your dragon kills something, your soldier kills something, your explorer does something. So making matches adds fill in the blank to your metagame. And the last option you have is actually, my board has different shapes. Yeah.
Wow.
Not every match 3 board is a rectangle. Some people have octagons. One person even had a triangle.
I'm in awe.
Yeah.
I'm shivering with anticipation.
And so if you take all of these ingredients, you too could probably make 4 or 5 different iterations of your own match 3 game and get 3 separate pitches out of it. Consider this my public service to the match 3 game community this afternoon, Oscar. Thank you.
Any match 3 game developers out there?
Anyone that want to raise their hand anymore?
You don't pitch like that, though. I know. You're intrigued. Okay. Okay, he's got an idea. So I'm going to making sure I've got the notes right. Just make sure I've captured you correctly. Your funniest is the color is blue. The worst is the stupid match 3, and the best one was the tower defense that just worked. Mm-hmm. Sounds about right? Okay. Any last things you want to add in terms of piece of advice that you would ask, you know, every developer who pitches, and we do this a lot with a beginning pitch. Yes. What's the one thing they should do to help you? The
piece of advice I overwhelmingly give to the most number of pitches I receive is, what makes your game different than every other game in its genre? What makes your game more compelling to play than every other game like it I'm going to see in the App Store? If you can't answer that, come back when you can.
Yeah. Why are you making it? I mean, actually, in some ways, your best pitch kind of sums that up, because he didn't even have to tell you; he just showed you. And I wonder if show not tell is kind of an interesting way of looking at that.
I actually, even though I had a super ton of fun playing the game, I did end up asking him what makes his different. And he had an interesting mechanic of keeping skills and abilities you've actually imbued to your towers, which weren't towers, they were really soldiers, but same difference. How you keep your leveled up soldiers moving from level to level in the game, and then you can put them in different formations. And that was actually pretty unique to a tower defense game. Also, probably the best, most unique match 3 pitch I've heard recently was the ability to take the game board and rotate it 90 degrees mid-play and have all of the tiles cascade down differently according to gravity. That was kind of a cool twist, pun intended.
Sounds good. On that note, we're going to thank Mike. He's going to head out. Safe travels home. But we will be voting on him later, so I will let him know. I will exactly the message.
Be gentle.
Yeah. Never. Okay, so we're not going to lose all of our panelists like that. You'll be glad to know. We're actually going to move now straight to Jana, and you kind of understand the idea. So your funniest, your worst, and your best pitch. Over to you.
Thank you. So first, I was thinking I would say what kind of pitches I have seen in my life. I run Stugan, which is a program for game developers from all over the world. They come to Sweden and they spend the summer there. So in order to apply to that, you need to send us a video pitch. So the majority of pitches that I've seen are actually video pitches. And there we have a restriction of having 90-second long video pitch where we want to see both the team and the game. But I also work with a business incubator in Stockholm, and I joined that a few years ago to start a games incubator. So there I also hear a lot of pitches, people who want to join the incubator, and those are very different pitches. So I was thinking I would I would talk about my worst, best, and funniest pitches, but also tied to my advice, kind of what I think works and what I think doesn't work. So I think the first important thing is to think about who you pitch to, who is the audience, who is the target. If it's an investor, if it's a publisher, or if it's somebody like Stugan or the incubator, and then adjust the pitch. Because in Stugan we're very interested in your game, while in the incubator we're not as interested in your game, while we're more interested in your third game, or like what your vision of your company is like. So that's, I think, a big difference there. There's also different lengths of pitches. Sometimes you are very restricted, like with the 90-second long video, where you have to talk both about the team and the game, and you have to squeeze that in the 90 seconds. And you have to think about being original to stand out, because people like we and everybody else, we see a lot of pitches. So to the first category, funniest pitch, there's also, in my mind, I kind of split it in two, because being funny could be very good and it could be very bad. So is it funny in a good way, or is it like laughable? So I've seen good share of both of these, and to be funny, I think, is very good, and I would encourage that a lot, because do anything that kind of makes you stand out in the series of pitches that people see is always good, and especially if it works and if it's actually funny. And I've seen many good funny pitches when we watch the Stugan videos. There is many videos, people are very creative, and we really encourage that, to be creative and be dressed in costumes or do some funny things. And one thing is, for me, is I'm not a good storyteller, so it's very hard to convey the joke. So I apologize for that. But one of the funniest pitches that I've seen this year, for this year's Stugan, is by a team who are actually here. They're showing their game, the Enchanted World. I don't know if they're in the room, but in their video, they were talking about the game, and then they were saying like why they should be picked for Stugan, and they were saying that they look Swedish because they have blonde hair. They like to be in the forest because Stugan is in the forest, and they were filming themselves being in the forest, walking around, and they like climbing rocks. They like other people sometimes, and they just make it in a very funny way, which is very hard for me, obviously, to tell you guys. But we were laughing a lot. But can I have two with the funny, or?
We'll go. I mean, we can try. We can try.
Well, so like laughable.
Go for it.
I don't really like talking badly about them because I really appreciate their effort. But one that was really standing out in being, and that could also go for the worst pitch, I guess. But it was a bunch of guys, and they were 3 guys actually, and they were really, really young. So that makes me feel even worse to talk about that. But they were saying like, I'm the CEO, and then the second went and said, I'm the co-CEO, and then the third one went, and I'm the third co-CEO, which was not, and the game, there was not even a very good game, but yeah. To the best pitch, I think what is important when you pitch is that you make yourself understandable. You make clear, like often when you hear a pitch, often you're like, you don't really understand the game, or you don't understand what they want, like what is the goal. And for games, it works best if you can actually see something. So if you can see the gameplay, if you can, even if it's just screenshot, but show some video, or if you can't really give the game to somebody. Because that speaks for 100 words. So that's the best thing you can do. And be clear, be crisp. I always say, like, if you want to build a slide deck, write a lot of things, and then go from that and try to say like, oh, this is not important, like this is not important, and just cut it to the most important part. And the best pitch I've seen, that I really like, and that still I see in my head very clearly, was in Stugan 1, and that was one individual guy, and he was pitching his game, and they have the 90-second limit, and many people, they send us videos that are 3 minutes, and they think it's fun, but it's really not. We really want the 90-second. And he managed in under a minute, and he just introduced himself, and he said, hi, my name is Lala, and this is my game. And he showed his face, and then he showed the footage of the game, and then while he was showing the footage of the game, he was explaining the concept of the game, how it works, how you interact with it, what's the purpose, what's the meaning, and it was a very cool puzzle game, and he conveyed it perfectly in that, like, less than 60 seconds. So that would be my best pitch. And my worst pitch, I already kind of said that, but when I was first reading your instruction, that was the first pitch that popped into my head, and there was also a Stugan pitch. It was a video, and like I always think it's very important to think about what you look like when you pitch, like how you be confident, but don't like when you pitch your game, don't say like it's probably not gonna be like a good game. It's like it's gonna be the best game ever. Like be confident and choose your words wisely. And one thing that I consider the worst pitch ever was a guy, and he sent us a video, and in the video he was sitting on the sofa, and he was literally in his underwear, and the camera was on a coffee table in front of him, and he was sitting on the sofa with his legs wide open, and I swear he was chewing gum, and he was just saying like, oh yeah, this is my game, and I'm this cool guy, and yeah, you should select me because I'm really lovely and I like hanging out with people. And that did not work very well.
You probably thought that was funny, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically it sounds like we are like Swedish people because we've got blonde hair, is your kind of funniest, with the co-CEO, third CEO thing going in there too. But we've also got Captain Underpants as your worst. I think, is that a good way to put him? Captain Underpants, the guy sitting on the sofa with the underpants on?
That is definitely the worst pitch, yes. Yeah.
And then the best pitch being done in 60 seconds, as I've summarised that here. So, yeah, cool. So we've got those 3. Thank you very much. Any kind of final bits of advice you want to pass on while you have the chance?
Really, what I said, I think in the beginning, think about who is your intended audience for the pitch. That's the most important thing if you want to pitch the game or if you want to pitch the company. I think people often make a mistake there.
Yeah, and I think knowing, like you say, knowing who you're pitching to and what your objective is kind of key there. Yeah, I mean, your chance to shine. Tell us your 3
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. Great pitches, by the way, from the previous two. Maybe just a little bit of background as well. I'm currently at Future Play Games, a CEO and co-founder. Obviously been pitching the company as well, and previously been in bigger companies, hearing a lot of pitches from other companies and game teams for publishing and co-development.
Pitched me once or twice, I think, in the past.
Yeah, I've been pitching to you back in 2004, I think, and something like that as well. And been pitching to platforms and whatnot. But I was thinking about the categories. So starting from the funniest, I mean, I started thinking more in the laughable sense as well, because it's very hard to actually be truly funny in a pitch, because it's a serious business in many ways. So it's a really fine art. So I went for the laughable section, and actually, I don't know how many works in games here in the room. Raise your hand.
If not, what are you doing? Which institution did you escape from, if you're not?
I don't know if this happens to you, but in elevators, on Facebook Messenger, in the bar, in the toilet, at my aunt's funeral, people pitch their games to me all the time. And it's an art and a science not to laugh. Usually. I mean, nothing against with that. And these are usually always people who don't work in games. And they're always like, hey, I have this great idea for games. It's about this salmon going upstream, and then you need to control the salmon. And, you know, he starts in the Atlantic Ocean, he goes all the way through the Baltic, and then he goes up to the Lapland. And then you catch him in the end. Okay. You were the salmon, but then you catch the salmon. Okay, and yeah, okay. What do I say to this person about the game and the market and whatnot? And weirdly enough, most of them are fishing games actually that I get pitched. But I think that's like a whole category of pitches, because pitching is hard, and a lot of people come at least to talk to me, you know, random people who are not in games, pitching games. Hey, I like games, I have a great game idea, or I never play games, but I have this great idea for a game, so can I get $1 million if you build this game? That type of pitches. And most of them are laughable and in that way funny, but you have to be nice and polite and respectful, etc.
I'd like that if it had the Chemical Brothers song, Sammy the Salmon, in the way you play it. That would be awesome.
Yeah, some people even send like game design documents and stuff like that. I've been thinking about this and write that. But those are laughable, and it's hard sometimes not to laugh, but then to kind of respectfully say that, yeah, we don't actually do that type of games, but it's a nice idea, great, thank you, and it might be hard to do, but thank you very much. Then on the worst part, on the worst pitch, actually I'm gonna, not necessarily the worst pitch, but it's actually a pitch that I've given myself, pitching the company at Slush in 2014, I think. And the pitch went all right. I didn't have a team, you know, fully in place yet and everything figured out, but I had this idea of a company that's focusing on ads and, you know, building games that leverage ads, and ads business is huge. It's a $100 billion market in a few years, etc. And we're going to launch games and show ads and make money with those ads, and launch more games and show more ads and become successful. And kind of 5 minutes into the pitch of like 30 minutes meeting, the investor says, this is a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. It will never work. And that's like pulling the rug underneath your feet. A moment like, okay, yeah, it's not a Ponzi scheme. Listen to me. No, it never work. It's a Ponzi scheme. And then kind of, you know, just leaning back. And you don't have the numbers yet, and you don't have anything. And you're like, okay, how do I convince this guy? It's not a Ponzi scheme. You develop games, you publish games, you make money with those games, then you know, develop more games and publish games and make money with those games, and that's what you do. But at that point, the key thing with that was that they thought that you can make enough money with those games to advertise your own games, to buy more installs, to keep the game going. So he thought that we need to launch like 365 games a year, and it will never scale unless we find stupid new games from somewhere, like in a pyramid scheme, to make it work. But he wasn't very talkative and explained why he went there and just kind of shut down, etc. So that didn't go too well and didn't get the funding or anything like that. So that's the worst pitch, as in terms like a pitching experience, personally pitching, when the rug is pulled underneath your feet, then you got no way to really kind of recuperate from there to make it a home run. Don't recommend it. So pitching early is even more daunting than pitching late when you actually know more. So that's my worst pitch personally as a pitching experience. Funnily enough, the best pitch is actually the same pitch and the same investor just a year later. And I'm using this as an example that, what is important about pitching. And at that time, I didn't know all the facts and I didn't know how the model would work. But a year later, we had a team, we had already raised money from somewhere else, we had launched the game, we had the KPIs, and we had the UA KPIs to prove that it actually works, it scales, it's actually profitable. And at that point, it was a very easy pitch. 15 seconds in, yeah, we're in a type of a situation with the same investor, etc. I didn't mention the previous year's pitch to the same investor, but I have actually, like a year later, at a private event. Hey, do you remember the first time I pitched you? No. You told me that, Yummy, this is a pyramid scheme. It will never, oh my God, did I actually tell that? And he didn't remember that, etc. But, and we're good friends now and all of that. But my point here is that sometimes it doesn't matter how well you pitch, and the pitch can be exactly the same. Sometimes what matters more is what you actually have and what you can actually kind of believe about the pitch. So it's not just about being funny or being flashy or having beautiful slides. It's about belief, and sometimes for that belief you need more proof. And to have proof, sometimes you have to do it yourself. In many cases, it is the game. In games industry, we prototype everything. You can't, invest, time and effort and risk things on just based on a speech or a document, etc. A game is worth more than anything in our industry. And in this case was the same. It was a very easy decision once, you have the early signs that you can actually make it work. Of course, you could say that that's just hindsight and being lazy and not being able to see it and all that. But in many ways, you need some proof and you need to have some traction or something that is more than just the pitch for the pitch to be successful, is my point. That pitch is just one tool to communicate it, but you need the stuff outside the pitch that you're talking about already working up to a point in many cases.
This is kind of the thing that sort of constantly sort of dogs like any creative industry anyway, isn't it? Because, like you say, until you've actually got something to show, no one can actually understand it. So when we hear these kind of mythical PowerPoint presentations that raise millions of dollars, which I'm sure does happen, we assume that, of course, that's the norm, isn't it? But it's not.
No, I don't think it's the norm. Because in many ways, if it's a company that you're pitching, or a team, or an idea, or a concept, or a product, or a service, when you pitch it to 5 people, there's going to be 6 different versions of that idea. People view it differently, or somebody thinks about the operation, somebody thinks about the opportunity, somebody thinks about the risks, somebody thinks about the time, somebody thinks about what did I have for lunch, and everybody has a different idea of what you just pitched. And depending on where they're coming from and how long they slept last night, they're going to have a different feeling about it. And that's where the belief part comes in. If you have something more tangible that they can hang on to, then it's not just words. They're actually wanting to listen to the why and the story and how and what. Then they're interested, and then they're also interested in okay, how much and when, and that stuff that comes in the end.
And that clarity of what you're trying to achieve, and that it can have some chance.
Yeah.
So let me see if I've got this right. I'm gonna call your funniest Sammy the Salmon.
That's fine.
The worst games with ads, the Ponzi scheme. Yep. And then the best view to play, but the same with investor.
Yeah, I like that. From Ponzi scheme to view to play. Like
sounds perfect to me. So I think we've got our kind of categories. Now what we want to do is to get your votes. We want to get, but we also want to get your feedback. So if you've got any thoughts you want to add, we'll gather that later. What we're going to try and do now is just try and gauge who has convinced you they've got the best, worst, and funniest pitches. So I'm going to ask people for Mike, if you want to put your hands up if you think he provided you with the best range of pitches, please put your hand up now. There's a few hands there. About 12, 13, 14, something like that. Okay, all right, so good. Now, Jana, who thinks Jana gave the best combination of pitches? Please put your hand up now. Oh, that's not looking so good. And then Yummy. So those who think Yummy gave the best range of pitches, hands up now. Oh, that's a bit tighter. I think that's Mike. I think the winner is Mike. So on that note, I'm going to thank Mike later. But let's take the opportunity while we have it, while we've got these great people here who know this stuff inside out. Has anyone got any questions that they want to ask about pitching? Anyone got any scare stories about pitching that they've experienced?
I actually have a question. What is the difference between pitching something else and games? Like, in your opinion, how is it different?
So games
pitching
versus
something
non-games.
else than games. You mean in different industries, or? So games are. So I work with the incubator, and we have. I work with the games part of it, and there is also more generic tech part of it. And from the beginning, we were talking about what is the difference between a game startup and a more generic startup. And the biggest difference is that if you are other than games, then you're solving a problem. There is a clear problem, like, why are you making this product? There is somebody has a headache, you're giving him a painkiller. That's a clear thing. We don't have such thing in games. We don't make games because we're solving a problem. We're making games because we're entertaining people. So that's another difference. Like a person who is not making games, who has this product, they're also making the company because they want to make money out of that. And almost nobody ever, as I heard, make a game because they want to make money out of that, or started making games in general. So I think this problem part is the pitch goes very differently, because you go from the problem. You go about who are your customers, who are your dream customers, why is your solution the best solution for them. In games, you don't do that.
There's also, I think, there's another aspect to it, which is that not everything in other industries is about a pitch. Sometimes it's about responding to an RFP, so a formal, structured process. So I might be pitching what is effectively a game, but it's a synthetic training to the police. I'm not going to go and sit there and say, hey, look at my great training idea. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to have a requirements list that's been written out by some government body with some consultant somewhere, and I'm going to have to answer specific questions. So it's a very different, much more methodical process, in my experience, than in a lot of other industries. But we're, I think, in some ways lucky. Not necessarily always lucky, but we have at least got that kind of thing where we can inspire people around the idea as much as the revenue, but not without the revenue. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think that, what Jana said, that in other industries, of course, we're generalizing, there is more of that problem, solution, opportunity, and, scaling on market size, that type of thing. And in games, when you're talking about companies, it's more about the team, more than anything about the team, because everything else will change. What you're building, when you're building it, what is it going to cost when it's going to launch, the market is going to change underneath you and all of that, and that's different when you're pitching a games company for investment than when you're pitching a game. At least what we did, for example, we didn't pitch a game. Yes, we had lots of ideas what we want to build and what types of games, but I don't think you should pitch necessarily a game if you want to pitch a company. Yes, you need to have a lot of ideas on what types of games you want to build, and if you're pitching a company, you got to have differentiation. You got to have an angle to the market, something that makes you different and also gives you an edge, and that's your why, and that's the investor's why too. The why, okay, why you out of the 100 that I've spoken to today. But when you're talking about games, then it's all about getting to play the game. If you can't play the game, you need to be able to explain it so vividly that you actually play it in your head. Otherwise, it's hard.
Does anyone else have any questions, or better yet, a worst or best pitch they want to share with us? Anyone brave enough to share a pitch? No, it looks like that's not the case. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for taking part. I hope you got something out of that.
What's your worst pitch ever?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try and think of probably the one I can think of is my first ever pitch. I worked out recently, it was 30 years ago. I was pitching to Firebird as an 18-year-old. I had my friend who was the coder and my friend who was the artist. It's my very first time. We had this, actually, I still think at the time, a brilliant idea. We knew how to make, do you remember the old sort of D&D type games where you had like a skeleton in a tunnel and you would, you'd go further down? It's basically just lots of planes of it. So we were going to do that, but we had two things going with it. First thing, we had a combat system where you use the number pads to decide whether you're going to hit top right, top left, whatever else. And it was really nice the way we sort of planned it out. And we also had a lovely sort of binary tree mechanism. So any action you did in the story would change the behavior of all of the factions. And this is on basically a Commodore 64. Yeah. Anyway, so actually the pitch went down really well. The guy, this is Firebird, we're in Tottenham Court Road, we're sitting in the office, we're chatting away. The fact we got to sit in that room as a bunch of basically no experience at all, no proper skill sets, I still think was amazing. And they went, yeah, that sounds great. Come back when you build it. Of course, we hadn't built it. And in my defense, my friend Dave, he actually is the guy that built Oracle Payroll. So I still think this is the biggest tragedy in the game industry, personally, because the guy who is of such technical prowess that he can build Oracle's payroll system that they sell to millions of people didn't get to make games with me. So that's my worst pitch. And on that note, thank you very much, guys.